Hi there, Prairie Plant Girl here. I thought we would have a little wander around the yard today and have a look at the flowers. We'll look at the pots and the flower beds that I have growing in the yard, and just give you a little update on some of the things that I've planted in my videos over the last few months here. So we're starting here in front of my shed because I absolutely love these plant combinations and these planters here. These are possibly my favorite combination that I have this year, and I thought I'd share it with you once again just to give you a little update on how they're looking. So I have 2 cream planters in front of my shed and 2 smaller blue planters. The cream planters have this shockwave, I think it's deep purple or purple vein petunia in them. I absolutely love these. I grew these from seed, and I would highly recommend growing this variety. It's just been gorgeous for me with very little care or effort. There's some bunny-tails grass, and I also grew the bunny-tails grass from seed. The Margarita Ipomia sweet potato vine is just poking out the front here. I grew that from cuttings off a tuber that I saved last year. There's actually dahlias in the back here. I can't even remember what variety is in here, but they're not blooming yet. They're being kind of overwhelmed by the rest of the plants, but that's okay because it looks so nice. And then I have this purple scaevola in here, these purple flowers that are just poking out, and I just love, on this pot especially, they've really intermingled in with the rest of the plants and they're looking great. Now there is a verbena in here, but you can't even see it at this point. I'm not sure. Yeah, it doesn't even really show in that pot on the other side of me either. So I really didn't need to plant the verbena in there because it's just been swallowed up by the petunias. But I still think it's beautiful, and I'd highly recommend this combination to try in your own yard. Maybe even just the bunny-tails grass, the petunia, Ipomia, and scaevola. The little pots have this really pretty little pink button or bidden in it, and they have the lobelia. I grew the lobelia from seed, and there's a combination of blue and white in here. Now I think I had put candy tuft or something in here as well, but I don't see it. It was a cool crop, and it looks like it's disappeared in here, but that's fine. This little bit poking out just at the bottom just is the perfect little accent to these pots. So I'm really happy with both these pots. Let's carry on down the way into my flower garden that I created last year by expanding it out. I don't know, I think about 8 feet or something, a few meters, and it's looking pretty good. It's starting to fill in, and I'm pretty happy with how it's turned out. So I'm really happy with how this garden bed has developed here. It's starting to really fill in. Things are starting to bloom. You know, we're into July now, and that's when the garden really comes alive here and fills in. We've got consistent heat usually at this point, and it's just my job to make sure it all stays watered. So right beside me here I have some cosmos, and I won't remember all the varieties of everything. There's some yarrow right in front. It looks like I have a giant thistle growing. We don't need this. There's always weeds. I do have a little patch here with some dill, and I have no idea what this is. It's some sort of little weedy thing that comes up, but butterflies usually flock to it and lay their eggs on it and strip it down. So I usually leave a little bit of it in my yard. There's some cornflower or bachelor's button here that comes up every year, self-seeds itself. I just transplanted this lobelia here and these snapdragons out of some pots, and they're looking a little rough, but I'm thinking they'll bounce. They maybe just need a bit more time. There's more yarrow over here, and there's a little bit of milkweed right under the hummingbird feeder there that's just starting to get established. There's some Rudbeckia back here, cosmos, and on this side of me I have this volunteer squash, melon, I'm not sure. I have a couple of them in my yard and I've just been letting them grow. I'm just curious what kind of seeds they came from, and I'm just kind of waiting to see what develops on them. I'm not sure if I'll leave them to produce a bunch of fruit, but it's kind of fun to see when you have volunteer plants come up. Speaking of volunteer plants, I have a purple petunia down here that was planted. I had some purple petunias planted in this area last year, and I have a few that have come back. They must have dropped seed and they're coming back on their own. Now here in my climate, often petunias that come back from seed, they just they don't get real big in time to make a real big show, but it was fun to see this little bloom pop up here. And then I have some Monarda. There's another one right here. This is just a really small little mini Monarda. What is it called? It's like purple gumball or something like that. And there's a bit of cosmos. There's some paper daisies just starting to get going here. This is coming up all over my yard, and I'm waiting to see what it is because it's about to bloom, and I'm not sure what it is, and I'm not sure if it's a weed or maybe some sort of native flower seed that I planted around or something. So I'm just kind of waiting to see what this is. There's some more of this petunia down here, so it's fun to see that come back up. And my peony that I just planted, but yeah, it's really filling in. I think you can see back here the liatris that I planted bare root last year and how well it's come up. This is a white liatris back there. It's always fun to see everything come back that you planted the year before and see how well things are doing. That's a honeysuckle vine. It's a little bit shaded, so it doesn't do much. Maltese cross is the red plant back there. I think that's Joe Pye coming up, that kind of taller open leaf plant back there. There's some lilies, clematis going up the fence, thyme, lots of cosmos. Here's those little Monarda and the little petunias. This is the peony that I just planted in a video not long ago. This is one of the sunset shade osteospermum. I absolutely am loving the colors that come out of that. There's also a sunset red hued kind of colored one that I have out front. Absolutely beautiful. Right here, this is soapwort. I cut it back a little while ago, like a week or so ago. It's looking really nice. And there's that liatris. So as we move just a little bit further into the space, in the foreground there you'll see Nicotiana. That is just seed that's, I think, dropped from plants in previous years. I can't remember if I actually grew any from seed this year or not. I don't think I did. And again, there's more cosmos. Down here is dianthus that's been cut back already. It has beautiful little blooms. It's a really nice little spring blooming dianthus. Over to the side there is my chrysanthemum, my flamingo at sunset chrysanthemum that I started from seed. So a few plants growing in there, as well as, I think you can see the little bit of a daylily that's just starting. There's clematis on the fence, a little bit more Joe Pye coming up, and an Alberta spruce. I have some zinnias on this side of me, more zinnias over here. This is Giardia, or blanket flower, just starting to come into bloom here. And there's some amobium. I think you can just see this little white, delicate little white flowers there. And bee's friend, I'll tell you, the bees really do love that plant. Last year I had the amobium and the bee's friend more under the apple tree, and they just weren't getting enough light and they were getting hit by the sprinkler. So having them out here has really made them stand up and look a lot better. I do have some gladiolus planted in this area. I'm just waiting for it to come into bloom. There's a little bit of bright eyes chrysanthemum in behind me. I did put a ring around it because it was looking a little bit rough and flopping over on me. And there's also that gomphrena. I think that's QIS lilac, and more of the lobelia that I transplanted in, and a little bit of snapdragons. Again, they're looking rough, but I think they'll bounce. Oh, and all this grassy stuff is a tray that had onion seeds in it that I just tossed out here. I didn't think they were doing anything. That was old seed from a few years ago that I'd collected off my plants, and I just tossed the soil out here, and then later in the spring I had onions coming up everywhere. There's some lamium there, right down there, the variegated color there, variegated leaf. You have to see this beautiful clematis. This is Rhapsody. Love that clematis. Look at all the buds about to come still. There's amaranth down there. This is that vanidium that I planted, and it takes a long time to go from the bud stage into a full bloom, so it's slowly opening up. There's lots of nigella that just came up from seed that was dropped last year. I believe this is a false indigo. Some sunflowers that are just starting to get ready to head up. More cosmos. Status that's about to bloom there. Random borage that put itself in my yard on this side. Some lilies. I have red lilies that are just finished, and then yellow lilies that are coming in. And I believe that's obedient plant in front of it. And one random little poppy down there. This is my little shade garden that I started years ago. It actually gets morning sun, but in the afternoon it gets just full on shade over here. And everything is looking great, including this volunteer clematis that just insists on growing here, so I just let it kind of do its thing along the ground. I have some baby mouse ears hosta, some brunnera, some masterwort, beautiful raspberry Sunday hosta there with the red stems. I'm not sure how you see it. There's a hydrangea there. There's another hosta in the front there. Lots of Canada dogwood. There's ferns in the back. There's salmon seal. That's the kind of arching frond I think you can see coming up towards the fountain there. There's a little bit of a stilby growing around the fountain. So lots going on in this bed. It's just kind of a lush green little area with the occasional little bloom popping up here and there throughout the seasons. And I really am enjoying how it's turned out. Hopefully you can hear me over the fountain. I won't spend a lot of time on these hanging baskets. I did just show them off in a video last week, I think, where I moved some ranunculus out and popped a few, what did I put in here? Petunias? No, calibrachoa. So they're looking stunning. I'm really impressed with how well they filled in and how well they're doing. I absolutely love these cabbage. I'll maybe take you up on the deck and show you a view from looking down at them from on the deck, because when I'm barbecuing doing things, I actually see them from that view, and I love the look of them from up there, as well as the structure they provide in these hanging baskets from out front here. While we're up here on the deck, I think I had shown you putting together these baskets, but these pots, but I can't remember. But there's a white marigold, and I believe this is Candyman orange calendula. There's a little bit of lobelia down here and some dusty miller. And there's more lobelia and dusty miller around the back as well. So there's a trio of these pots here. And then I have my stacking planter with some herbs in it. There's cilantro, there's thyme, sage, I think there's oregano somewhere around here, and basil. So I'm really happy with how this little corner is looking. And then as we go down the stairs, there's 3 pots with some mimulus and lobelia, maybe some osteospermum. I can't remember what else is in there. I'll have a look as we go. The drip just went off on these planters along the deck here, so it's why it's so wet around here. But yeah, there's a lemon tree off to the side there, and then there's the planters coming down the stairs. I love mimulus. If you have never tried this flower, it's easy to grow from seed. It's also known as monkey flower, and it's great for shady areas. I mean, there's not a lot of sun that comes down at this pot, and look how well it's blooming. This one doesn't have one in it, so this is just osteospermum. Hasn't opened up yet, it's early in the morning. You can see the ones up there are just starting to open, and then there's mimulus in there as well that's growing just as well up there. Gets a little more sun at the top there. And of course the lobelia. All flowers I grew from seed. Back here is the big wooden planter I built a few years ago, and I just made it so there's holes in the top to sink some long, narrow planting boxes in. And this area gets a little bit of morning sun, but with the ash trees it really doesn't get a lot. And look how full and colorful of a planter I can still have going. I mean, I have my deck chairs are sitting in front of this. It really doesn't get a lot of sun back here. But I have big, beautiful begonias. Look at these. Hopefully that color shows up well. And I have impatiens overflowing. There's Browalia right in the front there. I love Browalia. It's a great shade flower, and it will just, like, that's one plant right there, and it just fills in a huge space. Whereas the impatiens, I have like something like 6 plants filling in the same amount of space. It doesn't compete well on this side down here where there's even less sun. The impatiens are definitely doing better. So I'll show you a shot from this side, because the Browalia is kind of getting swallowed by impatiens over here. And I think that's just because there's really almost 0 sun on this corner, and the impatiens are happy with that. But the Browalia needs just a hair more sun, I guess. But you can also get Browalia in a white flower, but I find it isn't carried by a lot of garden centers here. So if it's something you're interested in, you might have to ask around for it. But I'm just really happy. The begonia in that pot is a red that's just about to crack open and bloom. So beautiful. Over here is another shady little space in my yard. The sun is just starting to peek up above the trees now, and so it's just going to start to poke in here a little bit in the morning, and then it will get a lot of shade and then a little bit more sun in the afternoon, kind of at a funny angle that sweeps across the front of this bed. This is where there's a trellis I had tried to grow some firecracker vine on in a video. I didn't have a single seed come up there that I can find, so either I weeded it out when it was young or it didn't come up. I do have another little kind of obelisk that I planted some around. I'm not sure if I did that on the video, but I have one plant coming up there, and it's really not much of a plant yet. So that is something I think you definitely, in a cold, short season kind of climate like mine, probably want to start inside from seed, whereas I direct sowed it. So just something to know. But there's a lot going on in this bed. There's lots of hostas, there's ferns, there's obedient plants, there's a few cosmos, there's alchemy mollies. I planted a new clematis right behind me this year. I don't know, lots going on in this bed, so I'll just give you a quick little look through it on our way past. Here's a Weigela. And there's another honeysuckle vine going up there. That one looks a lot better than the last one. My rain barrels have a combination. I can't remember if I put this in a video or not, but they have a combination of Dusty Miller marigolds and just some tiny, tiny little sweet peas coming up in them. Kind of in front of that bed we just looked at there is just a pot with some random plants that I had left over in it. This is mint, spearmint here. This is Bacopa, lobelia, and verbena. And this is another Bacopa. This is the blue one, and I'll tell you, it needs to be deadheaded. It seems like a lot more than the white one. And there's just a little pot of lettuce here. I'm quite happy with this hanging basket. That's the citrosa, I think it is, geranium, coming up in the middle. I could almost trim it back. It's getting a little bit lanky, but this is the one that has that citronella smell to it. Why is the name of this plant evading me today? Put it in the comments if you remember. Nemesia? Yeah, Nemesia, that's what it is. I'm loving this calibrachoa. There's a little red snapdragon in the back there. I didn't know what color it was when I put it in, and it doesn't really go with the basket, but yeah, we'll leave it there. And some more of the lobelia that I grew from seed. It's looking great. This area here, I just don't know what to do with it. I had hydrangeas in here. It's just so dry under here. So I had hydrangeas, and there's just one left. The dog runs through here. This seems to be his path. I even tried to put that little bird water bath there. Did not slow him down at all. I tried putting some bunny tails grass in. I thought they might fill in. It's just too dry and shady down there. A little bit of scabiosa coming along here. It's my first time growing it, but it's not looking the greatest, and I have to figure out some plants that like kind of dry shade, I guess. This is a hydrangea. It's kind of hard to see. It's a little shadowy there. There's a daylily in behind it. There's some liatris that I planted last year, and this obelisk. I get my shadows out of the way. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but that is that firecracker vine. It's a little bit more starting to get to the top here. It's it's taking its time, and it's just one seed. I planted it all around the sides, and the one seed in the back shadiest part, that's the one that germinated and came up. So I don't know if I'll get anything out of that other than a few leaves. This flower bed here is along my west fence. I have a few hydrangeas in it. This is turtle's head that's coming up here. So this will get a cute little kind of seashell pink bloom at the top later on in the summer, and it really fills in a nice clump. It's actually a plant I got from my neighbor when she was dividing plants up. There's some amaranth growing in the back. This is the bed that I just planted some delphinium in the back. I think you can see the hanging baskets along the fence here. There's just a real random mix of plants through here. There's echinacea, there's some liatris, there's a couple of yews, some foxglove in here. This is dianthus down in the front, this kind of grassy looking stuff. What else do I have in here? Oh, I have my Cupid cherry down along here. It's a lot, so we'll walk by and you can just have a look. Oh, I do have some evening primrose that's in bloom, and I do have a few snapdragons back against the rain barrels. Oh, there's also lilies in here, so you'll see lilies. I think there might be some yellow lilies in bloom at the far end, and there's orange lilies that are just starting to bud up at this end. There's the hanging baskets. I don't think I did my hanging baskets in a video this year. They're very similar to hanging baskets I've done in previous years, with petunias and lobelia. I think some have a bit of verbena in them. I thought maybe I had some calibrachoa, but it doesn't look like there's calibrachoa in them. Down there, I don't know if you can see them. There's the snapdragons. It's a lot of shade back there, so they don't do a whole lot. And it looks like a volunteer sunflower. Daylily. This is a cherry tree from a cutting. kind of a wild cherry tree. I don't know the variety anymore. It's a hydrangea. There's the delphiniums I just planted. You can see they're growing nice there. There's some liatris just poking out the back there, about to bloom. Some red amaranth. This is my Cupid cherry tree. Oh, my margarita daisies. There's a little wigelia in there, that variegated leaf down there, but it just is struggling. Some speedwell. And these are the, is it Heliopsis that I just planted? There's 1, 2. This one hasn't come up yet, but one of them, the shoots were pointing down. They were bare root, if you saw that video. So I think that must be the one that was with the shoots pointing down. It'll just take longer to come up. Or I just had one that was a dud, and that's fine. They were on sale. This is the corner where I just cut back my dwarf mugo pines. Planted a summer sweet in the back there behind this tree here. And then I have some dahlias in front. I wanted to show you this pot here because if you recall, if you saw the video where I was showing you these pots, these are the, I don't know how you see the blue pots, and I had a couple that I had overwintered. I just left them, cut the plants back in them, and I just taken them inside over the winter into a basement storage space that had a little bit of light coming through a basement window, and was just heated, you know, I think it stayed around 15 to 20 degrees Celsius in there. And there was some lantana and some dahlias in those pots that popped back up in the spring, which I really didn't expect that to happen, but it was a little bit of an experiment. So this dahlia, I think it's this one that was the one that came back. The other pot, the dahlia was really lanky that came back, and I replaced it because it just wasn't really doing anything and looking good, so I just popped another one in that pot. This is, I think, the one, I'll know when they bloom, but that came up in the spring, and the lantana's looking great. It's a beautiful variegated, lantana does this, it changes color as the blooms age. And then I just had added some white bacopa and lobelia in the front. So this is what they're looking like a few months later. These are the same style of pot, but I put these together fresh this spring. And this is the dahlias that I grew from seed. There's gladiolus in the front, or in the center. There's some yellow calibrachoa and some blue lantana. I love the combination of those colors. So they're looking really nice. And the other blue pot that overwintered is just down the ways a little bit. So here's the other blue pot. There's just, again, a random vining crop of some sort that came up there that I'm just leaving. But here's the other blue pot that came up, and I can tell now looking at this one more closely, this is the one where the dahlia had overwintered. I pretty much guarantee just by the size and look of it. The lantana's not as big and strong in this one, but neither are the other plants. This one might just not be getting the same amount of light or water or something in this area. There's a couple more pots in the backyard I'm going to show you, and then we'll go to the front. So these pots are flanking my greenhouse, and in the spring I had them planted up. They had lots of ranunculus in them and pansies in them, and I had planted the gladiolus in the bulbs in them early on because gladiolus can go out before your last frost, planted in the ground. And I can't remember if I had anything in the back here. I can't remember, but now I've planted, there's some little dwarf sunflowers in the back. The gladiolus are kind of shrouding them right now, but soon they'll be blooming. I have one just starting to put out some kind of lilac colored blooms there. It's gonna be beautiful. And then I'll be cutting those bloom spikes, so that should thin them out a little bit for the sunflowers to have more room. But I've really been happy. Even the pansies over here, I've been very happy, and they're still going quite well. I think I took the ranunculus out. Oh no, I should lift the ranunculus out of here. They're still in here. They're done. And I have added some osteospermum. I've had a few people asking me about the osteos from saved seed that I tried to grow, and I think I saw one random, oh, right here it is. So this one that's white, this would be from the saved seed. I just kind of got all my all my osteos mixed together this year when I was bumping them up into bigger pots. This white one will be from the saved seed, but I really didn't have really good germination. I wouldn't recommend doing that. Or maybe I just didn't collect the seed well, but it didn't work out super well for me doing that. But I have some more osteos that'll be blooming here soon. Lots over here. So yeah, I'm really happy with how these pots have turned out here and how well they're doing. So let's take a wander into the front yard. Along the way, I'll show you, if you remember from last year, I built some triangle planters to line the walkway from my backyard to my front yard, and they're potted up this year. They're not looking the greatest, but we'll have a look at them, and you can judge me a little on my plant choices. So here's those planters. They have flowering cabbage. This is a white color. It doesn't have the same purple hues as the ones planted out front. And there's salpiglosis. I love this flower. It might not be the best choice for a small area like this. There's a purple one over there. Sorry, I know my shadow's in here. There's lobelia back in there. It didn't do much. And I just threw some of my smaller last ipomia that I grew from cuttings into these pots. That pot really is looking not great. This one, for some reason the cabbage wanted to come to the front of this pot, but I actually like the look of it better than the other two. So yeah, these aren't my favorite plant combinations here, but I'm still trying to figure out what works in this space. It gets a lot of shade. It's a 2-story house on the other side of me, and just a little bit of, there's sun right now, but it's just for a couple of hours. So I think impatiens, Burwellia, that might be the way to go in these pots from now on. Maybe begonias. And this tiny little mouse ears hosta down here. There's another hosta. I planted a bunch of hostas up in a video a few years ago, and most of them are doing really well, but I never remember to show them. There's one of them. I can't remember the variety, there's so many. So here's my front yard as you come from the back. I just planted the flower beds in this front yard up in a video a couple of weeks ago, so we will just go through real quick. I'll mostly show you the pots, so we'll come back to this area here, but let's start at the front door. These pots here are doing really well. I'm really happy with them. I planted these up in a video, and there's a couple of kinds of coleus. There's some trailing fuchsia, more impatiens, and heuchera there, and a little bit of tradescantia, I think is what it's called. It's like more of a house plant right here. This begonia, there's a begonia in here, and it's getting buried, so it maybe wasn't necessary. The impatiens can just take over sometimes. Such a pretty flower though. Little Dancer, I think. I can't remember the variety name. And I have trimmed these back. They were getting really long, and I'm hoping they'll bush out a little bit more now. So there's the front yard from another view. A few more blooms maybe since we were in here last. The flowers that I planted are doing really well. Even the thyme, I don't know how well you can see all those little dots there, but that thyme that I transplanted into the walkway. Looks like it all took. So these planting pockets are native plants. And I just planted a lot into this bed, so it's not as full of flower and looking as good, but still full and everything took well, so it should do nicely in the coming years. This avens needs to be cut back already. Echinacea getting ready to bloom there. This one's just getting a bit more sun, so it's already blooming. Here's the pot I planted this up in a video, I believe. So it has a pomea. That's a new kind of creeping Jenny type trailing plant there. So calibrachoa, euphorbia, a beautiful coleus, and there's more. There's a yellow calibrachoa on the other side. It's doing quite well. All this blanket flower. A little bit of milkweed in there. And here's my pots. So I have some purple millet, some calendula, more pomea, and this is more of that Sunset Shades osteospermum. And look, this is the one I was talking about. Now, it's still early on, they're just opening up, but I love that color. This petunia was it was a Shockwave deep purple, I think. And it's just, it looks nice, but it maybe doesn't really go with the rest of the plants. And there is a red shades dahlia in there, but this millet is loving this space here, and it's just kind of overtaken the dahlia. This planter is the same planting, just on the other side, and you see the dahlia here. It's just getting more sun or something. I don't know, it's happier over here, so it's growing a lot larger. And same with the petunia, everything in this pot. I don't know, this pot's happier. Maybe it's getting watered better. But looking really good. So there's always so much going on in my yard when we hit this point in the season. Everything's busy growing and blooming and filling in, and I love it. It's a little bit, can be a little bit jungly sometimes, but that's my style, I guess. So I'm sure I missed a few things, but I think we got through most of it this morning here. So thanks for coming along on an early morning wander through the garden to check out what's growing, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.